Hey everyone, and welcome again to my channel, Dropped Tales. As usual, it's me, your cool? I guess I'm cool, I don't know. Your host, Ali. And as usual, if you want to be super cool, hit the subscribe button and like the video. I mean, if you don't like it, don't have to do that, but I will like you a whole lot if you do that. Today, I have something kind of special to show y'all, and that's a model sword from DeAgostini. DeAgostini is actually I guess it's a magazine. It's hard to describe. It's a subscription thing. They have a lot of collector style stuff where you can subscribe to it and they'll send you stuff regularly. For example, dude collects some die-cast airplanes, and we have a small collection in the hallway, and that's also a DeAgostini thing where I don't remember how often it was, but they regularly came out with a small information magazine in a model, and they came out with a whole bunch of those. Now they're also doing a Godzilla thing where you can make your own Godzilla, and I think every week or every 2 weeks you get Godzilla parts to make your own little robotic Godzilla. In my case, I am subscribed to the Nihonto magazine, and I just got the 2 latest issues 16 and 17. These magazines are really cool for several reasons. One of them is that they come with a scale. Whoa, this is really hard to get in here. I think you can say a scale. I want to say poster, but kind of like what were those called? The centerfold girls? I mean, I guess if you're into swords, this is pretty sexy. Let me get, oh god, this thing's a mess. Just a minute. And then it also has things like famous swordsmen and legends having to do with swords and more cool information. And I like it because they've got a lot of cool charts and a lot of nice information. And it's very nice and easy to understand. Of course, they're all in Japanese, and I think the release schedule is a little bit fast for me. I am so backlogged on reading these. Now, you'll notice this is Nihonto, and there's this thing behind me. This is actually a binder. These magazines actually come apart. You'll notice that there are 3 holes punched in each page. This is so you can organize them into your own Nihonto binder. So the first Nihonto binder actually came for free with the very first issue, and mine is right here. This is my very first Nihonto binder. And inside, I actually have mine divided up into 2 binders now because I have so much stuff. The first issue came with these little divider for each section, and you can organize, for example, your pull out things here, famous people here, and my second binder, because the fold up things take up so much space, there's not a whole lot in there. In the second binder, I've got everything else in here, and I just kind of have a rubber band on the back, attach the covers to the back, and still flip through and see them like this. I think it's really cool, and sometimes I'll just kind of carry one of my sword binders around the house and flop down and read it somewhere. My love of swords isn't just, actually my love of historical swords is much more recent. I've done Iaido for, 16 years now, and I now have a Nanadan in Muso Jikirin Eishinru Iaido. Actually, this back here is my Iaito aluminum alloy practice sword that I use for Iaido. This is actually a very nice one, and I'll be using it a little bit to kind of compare a sword that's designed for use to the sword I just got from DeAgostini. Okay, now, for real, let's get into the box. Woo. So, let's open it up. Boop. There we go. So inside the box, let's tilt this forward. Inside the box, we have Hasebe Heshikiri. The original sword was forged, I don't have this memorized, was forged in 1312 by Hasebe Kunishige. So the original sword is pretty long. The present length of the sword is 64.8 centimeters, and it is open to public viewing. I mean, the real one is open to public viewing at the Fukuoka Museum. This sword was originally possessed by Oda Nobunaga. It was later owned by Kuroda Nagamasa. Let's actually look into this now that I've thrown a few facts at you. So this is the sword list that I'm supposed to be getting for my original katana collection. So the one that I just got is this one, the Daikai Hasebe Heshikiri. In December I'll get the next one, then February, April. Every 2 months it looks like I can expect to get these. All of these were made in Seki. I live very close to Seki, which is nice for me because I do Iaido. Each of these swords costs about 24,000 yen. I'm going from Japanese to English with numbers. That is 24,000 yen in English, which is about $240. So it's not cheap. I was kind of like, when dude was just like, oh, let's get these. Because I want a Shinken from Seki, not a bunch of model swords so much. But hey, it's cool. I will take a bunch of cool model swords of famous characters. Not famous characters, famous swords. I said characters because there's also a game called Token Rambu, and I've got some of these guys back here. A bunch of famous swords have been Jesus Christ, turned into human beings to fight and protect the history of Japan. And it's just insanely popular because in Japan, things with like hot guys is popular, and this is totally an ikemen game, which means it's full of hot guys. Hot guys are good guys, yeah. And Hasebe Heshikiri is also featured in Token Rambu. So, back to the sword. It's been packaged in some plastic. In the box itself, it's got some bubble wrap on this end, and this one came out, but bubble wrap on this end. Let's pull it out of the plastic. It's not sealed. Oh, I mean, it's lighter than my actual practice sword, but like I know some people have Iaido swords that are lighter than this. I'd say the fittings are average. It's not real silver, it's some sort of cheaper silver. If you get silver fittings for an Iaito, then it tends to be a little more expensive, and this is only $200. My Iaito was Kyusenen, or $900. And my first Iaito, which I don't have with me, it's in America, I want to say $400. And usually the lowest in Iaido practice swords will start at around $300. So this is a bit cheaper than what you would get for an actual practice sword. The actual Hasebe Heshikiri has same right here. Same is a kind of a premium expensive item. So here, as you can see, it's not same or ray skin. Ray skin's very bumpy, but they did go in and texture it so that it has a nice bumpy texture here. The actual saya lacquer is not bad. Like, I have no issue with this black lacquer. It's got a koiguchi-kun in here. Koiguchi-kun are used to keep your sword from fitting all the way into the saya. Let me get this off here. There we go. Alright, we got the koiguchi-kun off. This isn't bad. So this is what the blade, the hamon, let me try to get a good angle on here. The hamon for Hasebe Heshikiri looks like. You can see it's quite wavy. I don't actually know what this one would be called. Like I said, I'm only just now getting into swords as more of an art thing. Personally, I like Suguha Hamon, which is this line along here. But other than that, I don't know a whole lot about them. So this is what it looks like. And the habaki, I mean, it's not the best made habaki. And it's very thin at the tip, but I mean, it's a model of a real sword. Here's a quick detail shot of the tsuba for you. And also, don't worry, there's no edge, so I don't have to worry about hurting myself. Now let's open up my Iaito so I can explain a little bit about what, some of the quality differences. And I'm not bashing this. This is 100% like a collector's thing, not a use thing. So this was designed with totally different things in mind than an Iaito, which is, designed for being swung around. Cool. It actually came with a little sword bag. Okay, so this is my actual Iaito that I use for practice. Sorry, it is a little bit dirty compared to the model because I actually use this. So, some of the differences between a Iaito, a Mogito designed for actual use and practice, and one that's designed for hanging on the wall. Now, I will say this is a very nice wall hanger sword. I have seen some pretty crappy wall hanger swords in my life. So not bashing this, it's just made with a totally different purpose in mind, and that's for people who like historical swords to have a model in their home. One of the first differences that I noticed, and it's a bizarrely minor detail is the kurigata right here. Let me kind of get the light on there. You can see on the Iaito, it's been sanded nice and smooth. And here on the model, they didn't really bother with that. I mean, that's just a cosmetic thing. It doesn't really affect anything at all. The Iaito Tsuba, this guard, this is brass and this is a silver color, but this is like actual brass. This is heavy metal. But yeah, this is actually pretty hefty. And over here, it's not plastic. It's definitely not plastic, but it's like cheap costume metal type of metal, or costume jewelry kind of metal. I mean, it looks nice, it's shiny, it'll look pretty on a wall. I think it wouldn't really matter if you put it on an actual sword. Metal's metal. I do think the actual oxidized thing looks nicer. You can see here where I put my thumb. Actually, yeah, I thought I had a brass. I forgot that I bought a silver tsuba, so this tsuba is kind of expensive and the rest of my fittings are brass apparently. Here, the same is real. Honestly, I have no idea if this is real or not, but it's colored black. This is also perfectly okay. It's an option for your Iaito that you can get. It's just personal preference. And one big difference, I think this is the second difference I noticed. If you look here at the mikugi, my Iaito has like a nice rounded mikugi and you're not supposed to take it apart, but taking it apart is definitely an option. Where this one, the mikugi looks kind of, it just looks cheaper and you can tell that it's been glued in. It's definitely not designed to be taken apart for future repairs and stuff. Also, both ends are visible. This is not super normal. Usually you see something more like mine where on one end it's super visible and on the other it's kind of like you can see it, but it's underneath there. And the Iaito, this is designed for use, and the tsukamaki on the Iaito is nanteyuka, shikkari. It's more properly made. It's tight. Like if you press on it and try to move it, it doesn't really go anywhere. So when you swing the sword, you've got a grip on this thing. On this one, I don't know if I can show you well enough. If you push, oh yeah, you can totally see that. You can see it moves. It is, even here, it's kind of like squishy feeling. I mean, it looks nice. It's just not designed to be swung around. All right, on to the stuff under the saya. Not under the saya, let me get into something inside the saya. With the actual Iaito saya, the one that I use, you can see there's a lot of hinoki around here. It's very, very thick. And the saya for Hasebe has very, very little. There's just not much in there, and it smells like glue. That is the wrong end of the saya. Yeah, the smell is different. I don't think this is actual hinoki. It might be, but it doesn't smell like it to me. Mostly I just smell glue. Now, for the actual blade, one thing I did notice is the habaki. I mean, the habaki isn't, I'm not gonna say poorly made, but it's not up to my personal standards. This would be a perfectly fine habaki for a beginner Iaito. Now first, let me talk about the Iaito, the one that I actually use. If you look here on the habaki, it's much more flush. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's much nicer. It's a cleaner fit. There's not a lot of gap. When you're finished with the waza and you're putting the sword back in the scabbard, the saya, your hand rubs right here. So it's smooth, no problem. It won't hurt. Here, there's a bit of a gap, not a big deal. And around the habaki here in the blade, you will see that there are no gaps. It's quite flush and very cleanly made. So this is I mean, it's not a shinken. I didn't spend thousands of dollars on this sword, but I did spend $900 and it's well made. The habaki for this, if you look at it here, there's quite a ridge there. And if you just look at it closely, it's got quite a few gaps going on there. Yeah, this is all right. I mean, I don't think this end, the blade, the business end, is that much different. But if you look here sideways, you'll notice quite a bit of a gap between the blade and the habaki. So I think it's not like horrible. I've seen a lot of entry-level Iaito that have gaps in the habaki. Not the end of the world. I'm not using it, so I don't need to actually worry about, you know, hand grease and dirt getting in there so much. It's mostly just to look pretty. It does the job quite well. It looks nice. And as for the actual blade, I think the ha right here is blunter than the ha on my Iaito. Right here, like, I think the light kind of helps make it obvious that it doesn't have an edge. One difference, and again, this isn't a quality thing, there's no hi or no groove right here. That's because the actual sword doesn't have one, and if you don't have to have one if you don't want it. The hi on mine is here. You can see it runs from near the Mitsukado here to a little bit before the habaki. This is mostly to reduce the weight of the sword without weakening it, and it's not a required feature. It's very common on modern Iaito because even with a hi, these things can be very heavy. Also, whenever you cut, phew, phew, it makes a rather satisfying whistle when you cut properly. You know whether or not you had the proper angle while you cut. It can be kind of like training wheels for beginners because beginners have no idea how they're holding the sword when they're swinging. If they have that nice whoosh sound, they can know, okay, I had the sword at the right angle when I cut. I think that's pretty much it for the differences between that very nice wall hanger slash possibly low-end Iaito sword Hasebe and my very nice Iaito. I'm not going to say that you can use this Hasebe model for Iaido because that's not what it's designed for. It just wouldn't feel as good because it's not quite as, again, sturdily built as a sword, an Iaito, made for Iaido, actually swinging. But I am pleased. It's very nice. I like the character Hasebe. Here is my Hasebe plushie that I actually got from a lottery at, I think, Mini Stop when Dude and I were still dating, and he is so squishy. But yeah, this is my Hasebe plushie from Tolkien Ramp. He's so cute. And on that note, that's it. So my evaluation of the sword is pretty much, it is a fairly high-end wall hanger. Maybe you can swing it. I don't advise it. I don't want to take any responsibility for that. It's not designed for being swung. But as a wall hanger, it is very nice. I'd say the details do match up with the actual Hasebe very well, though the saya doesn't have same, and that's totally reasonable because same is expensive. But I do like that they went and made the lacquer, the golden lacquer part, bumpy to kind of look like same, have that kind of same effect. I'm looking forward to the future swords that we get, and that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Hasebe also says, thank you for watching. And again, if you enjoyed watching this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you also subscribe, that helps me out a ton, and I will think you are super cool. That's it. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.